We did this.
It was the when the the film you put me on the spot, so now I feel
All
like I
right,
know.
don't worry.
What I do know is this is the fourth time you have been on this podcast.
I
I
saw
hope.
that in your letter. Yes.
Oh,
Well, now,
okay.
so this is the
Thanks
fourth
for doing
time.
it again. So maybe you remember it.
Sure. Oh,
And
I
I
do
was kept,
remember it very much,
but,
but I don't remember
but
particularly what the whatever I
sure.
was doing then.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, the my most memorable or the most memorable of those three, honestly, was with the Center Will Not Hold, because just
Ah, yeah.
that was very special, and that was in person, which was nice, you know. And this kind of I wasn't prepared for this. It just wasn't.
Yeah.
Just
Are
how
we on
deep.
now, by the way? Are we recording?
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll start. I'll start now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. I just don't want to
Okay.
say something profound and
And
forget.
it go on
Yeah.
not right exactly, of course. But yeah, so it's my Achilles heel is just starting without the guest knowing, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
while they
I'm down with it whenever. There's usually that thing that pops up, but
oh, okay, I just
whenever.
always start recording from when I start these things, because I tend to, if I don't, I'll forget to hit record, and then I've
Good.
done
So
that a
we're
couple
on
of times.
record, baby.
All right, man. Thank you. I'm in the
So,
Hudson Valley, just so you know. I'm in Tivoli right now. I
oh
work at a
wow.
yeah, I work at a radio station up here in Red Hook, and but I just, you know, I couldn't do this the way I wanted to do it with anybody around, you know. So I'm in a friend's
Yeah.
place nearby.
Mm.
Um, I had to actually like write down questions, which is probably is not a bad practice in general, but I tend to kind of, you know, go with it so much so that you know, I like it to be very zen typically, but I was kind of like worried and nervous a little bit because it's such a personal book, you know, and I read it. I was on a vacation this last week, and I was reading it there, and I was just plowing through it like, you know, in 3 days, 2 days reading this. And then I had to leave real early with my girlfriend to get back up here, and I've
Where were
left the
you?
book. It was in the Jersey, way down, like if south of Atlantic City, and the
Mm.
Jersey Shore. It's in a town called Longport. Have
No,
you ever heard of it? You know it?
not only that, I once rented a house there. No,
Oh,
no,
that's
I'm not
amazing.
thinking of Long. I was thinking of Long Branch,
Long Branch. That's where my
where.
grandparents lived. Yeah. Well, we can start to dive in. I don't
All right.
mind. I absolutely don't mind the tangents at all
Mhm.
as they come. This one's called The Friday Afternoon Club, a family memoir. And the first question I guess I had, Griffin, is um, even I know Alex is alive, your brother. He's like
Mhm.
the surviving member other than yourself in your family. Uh, but could you have written this memoir, uh, you know, when your folks were still around? When you're, um, do you think this could have been something you would could have done with them, or did this had to
Well,
be written now?
I wouldn't have been oddly shy or intimidated about writing
Mhm.
my memoir while they were alive. They'd read, short stories and articles and screenplays along the way. Uh, they've always gone to movies that I've either directed or acted in and given me notes. They've looked at early things. So, they've always treated me as as a creative person in my own right. Uh, so I wouldn't have had the shadow of hanging over me, the intimidation, but I couldn't have written it while they were alive because in the years, John was the last to pass. Um, I'd often thought of writing a book. I wasn't sure. It was just on a bucket list in the distant future. But I needed the perspective. And, it's sometime, the wheels started to turn when I did a documentary about Joan. And I was responsible for editing and orchestrating her life from birth to the the last years of her life. And I saw the structure in that, and I thought about that in terms of my own life. That helped me see my life and my family's life more clearly. I could see, the arcs of my parents' character from their birth and their childhood, and their moving to New York and falling in love in New York in the 50s, and live television, and it just sort of carried me along. But I don't know that I would have had that perspective were they alive. It would have been nice. I could have asked them to clear up certain things I would have wanted to know. But I saw them more clearly in their absence, if that makes any sense, than I did
Sure.
when they were right in front of my face.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real honest take, and I think they, you kind of talk about how they, as a writing on the technical level, or the, you know, as a in a writerly way, they would have probably approved, because it's a really well written book. But there's also like an honesty, a depth in there.
Well,
Like
that's the other
I
thing
don't
is,
see that you've censored yourself very much in terms of just how
eh,
honest you are about your relationships, and what kind of parents they were, their foibles
yeah,
as well as their
I,
strengths.
and that I got from them. That I got from
Yeah.
reading them. They were
Mm,
they were tough on they were tough on other people that they were writing about, and politicians, or uh, studio heads, or whoever they were. But they were also very tough on themselves, and they're very
hmm
brutally honest about themselves. And you know, John, once wrote a book called Vegas, Memoir
hmm
of a Dark Season, and he digs deep into his depression in a
mm.
very dark period in his life. It's a novel disguising a memoir. But and when Joan was unhappy in her marriage, she wrote about it in the Saturday Evening Post, which came as a shock to all of us. But as soon as she wrote it, she handed it to the husband she was thinking of leaving, and he edited it. So I was used to and influenced by a brutal honesty that people had about themselves. And um, so that sort of influenced me and freed me up.
Interesting that they could be. I guess when you're writing, it's such a solitary process, right? And you're in the process of writing. You can go pretty far if you're open to what that gives back to you. As a writer, as an
Mhm.
artist, and like any art like that, where you're sitting alone and you're writing in the on the paper, the blank paper or computer screen, what have you. But interesting that, for instance, your aunt Joan could write about things that she didn't want to share interpersonally, with one-on-one with family member. You found out through these articles in some cases. Did that ever,
Uh,
how did that go down with
uh,
you?
one when that came out, I was fairly young. I was really more observing my parents' shock. Um,
Right, right, right.
I was
Hmm.
like, and it was, interesting to see their reaction. Did you know this, Lenny? Did you know? No, did you? And and then getting on the phone to talk to him about it. And um, but Joan wouldn't talk about what she was writing while she was writing. Um, she was very closed mouthed. I remember
hmm
at a young age, uh, as much as I I love Joan. I was also, uh, I could be intimidated by her intelligence. And I think I was trying to be a peer at a 13 or 14. And I remember going, so Joan, what are you writing now? And from across the living room bellowed John going, Griffin, you never ask a writer what they're writing when they're writing. And I was shamefaced about that. And then there would be usually around Christmas. I don't know why they seem to finish their books around Christmas. We were all early readers, and we would get a shoebox with numbered pages, not stapled or thing, in a shoebox of the galley of their book. And then, so we'd be the first readers, and then we would get a printed copy on Christmas signed by them. But the things that Joan wrote about, what her inner life was going on, she was not verbal about. John, on the other hand, when he was writing something like True Confessions, which was about corrupt cops in LA during the Black Dahlia murder and corrupt priests, his research, you know, and diving into that world, he was so excited. He loved talking about it. They had very different, approaches. So I got to see a stereo of two different incredibly talented, brilliant writers who had entirely different processes.
Mm-hmm. Mm. During your, I guess, excavation of the family story or putting it together during when you're writing the book, did anything like does anything emerge?
It,
Is that too vague?
I well, yeah, but I would say every time I sat down, something new would emerge. Um, you know, uh, it would be a memory. I think I'd be writing, oh, this is the time I'm going to write about when I decided not to go to church and the family met
Mhm.
the Kennedys. Uh,
Quote unquote. We won't do any spoilers.
yeah, and what would emerge would be um, it would just come fully alive in my eyes, and the way I felt as a little boy, and a kind of betrayal and an oddly spiritual moment. Um, uh, and a loss of faith. And I never thought it would be. It's a story I'd often told anecdotally, but once I was writing it, many more things emerged. Many more insights and feelings, and uh, uh, things that I didn't that went beyond just simply talking about as an anecdote. It's like a funny story.
Mhm.
It was like I was aware of the pain of the little kid I was writing about myself.
But yeah, deciding to write the book, you knew you were going to obviously deal with a lot of painful memories and complicated family relationships, right? And so, were you prepared for like that part? Like, okay, for instance, and this is what I experienced reading. I told you, I started telling you that I brought the book down for a vacation. This is me anyway. I like reading stuff like this on my vacations anyway. I don't read, but bestsellers typically. Well, you know what I mean? Fiction, light fiction, bestsellers.
Turned out to
This
be a
hopefully will.
bestseller, by the way.
Oh yeah. Well, no shock there at all. This is a really great book. It's called The Friday Afternoon Club, a family memoir, by the way. And I got through the whole first part of the book, which is the majority of it, let's say, 2/3 of it, and then started this part two, which is, I would say, of course, deals with the murder of your sister, Dominique, and I left. We left, and I left the book. So I said, hold on, as I'm driving back up the Garden State Parkway, right? And I'm thinking, oh, wait a minute. I have Spotify, which has audiobooks on it. So we played, my girlfriend, she already knew about the book, and we listened to part two on the way back.
Saved by the audio. Right.
Saved by the audio. I love that experience, but I also felt like, how in hell did you get through this? Like, I know it's been, let's see, this happened, what year did John Sweeney murder her?
Yeah, the murder was in 82 and the trial was
82,
83.
1982. So you're talking about
Mhm.
42 years ago.
Yeah.
And I know that the passage of time does not make it less painful. Um, if you're going this deep as you do into telling the story in so much detail. And I'm just, did you anticipate it? And then when you're doing it, especially the audio version, how you got through it?
Well, it's funny, you're the first to like ask about that. When you're writing the book, there was particularly part two, a lot of emotions came up, a lot of anger,
Sure.
a lot of madness. I kind of conjured up a certain lunacy that our entire family was going through in that period during the trial, going in and out of a courtroom every day. And but you're writing, but you're also crafting the sentences, you're editing, you're going through, you want to get it right. I thought factually. I took out anything that sounded in any way self-pitying, where I inserted my emotions at this point. By this time, I figured the audience would know the narrator by enough to know that when I describe something that is clearly horrible, that I would agree with them. But what I didn't anticipate, I always knew I'd be reading the audio, but I got the contract, said 4 days, starting at 10, ending at 6, lunch break in between. I report to the studio. I'm in the booth. I read the first chapter, which opens up with a homicide detective uh, uh, coming to my mother's house at 4 a.m. Tell her daughter has been attacked and is on life support. So I read like I read very, very fast. I'm just reading fast. And this wonderful producer named Maddie, who this is what she does for a living. She let me go on, and then she said, "Look, you're reading too fast. Take your time. Well, everything you just read, we're going to do over again, but not now. We'll do it when everything is finished." And then I read um, each word, and I absorbed what I had read. And part of me would be, I can't believe I wrote this. And part of me would think, I can't believe I lived through this. And there would be moments, unexpected moments. I'm nowhere near the end of the book where things get really, really heavy. But I'll be talking about in the book, I in my teens, I'd met Carrie Fisher. We became immediate best friends. And I'm reading a section about my dyslexia and how I always get lost when I drive and I feel stupid. I'm confessing this to my best friend, and I get to the line. She says, if I wanted to get home in a straight line, I could call a taxi, but getting lost with you is the best fun I've ever had. Still gets me. I didn't see that coming, and I lose it. And we take a break. I don't know, Carrie just came back to me, and she brings me some water and she rubs my back. And she says, this isn't unusual. People, when they're reading their memoirs, and I'm talking about big, heavy hitter memoirs, like men you wouldn't expect.
Or maybe even tougher, like The Year of Magical Thinking,
Yeah, yeah,
which I remember
yeah.
listening to years and years ago.
Well, Joan did not read that.
Oh, she didn't.
And
Okay, I didn't remember.
no,
I
oh
thought
no,
it's
she could
interesting. My
never,
memory is that she did, but yeah,
she
you're
she
right.
she could never have made it through that.
Okay,
And but I put myself through it. And so I'll give you the long answer, but it was
I love it.
really
Please.
hard. It was really, really emotional and hard. And I became so close with the producer. She was so understanding. And she could anticipate when I was going to come up to something. And as I said, it was never something obvious like seeing my sister on life support. It was always an act of kindness of someone doing something wonderful to me. I would lose my shit.
Mhm.
And we'd start over, and then once we finally got to the end, Maddie goes, okay, remember those first two chapters? You just whipped right through. And I knew what I was doing was like, I'm just going to read this, read this, read this, read this, read this. I'm not going to feel anything. And I went, yeah. She goes, back to the drawing board. And, totally different reading, and I really lived through it. And I lived through it in 4 days of the most significant part of my life. So it was a biggie. It was a real experience.
You had 4 days to do part two, or certainly you didn't do the whole
4
book.
days to read the entire book.
You did.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine how that's possible. Wow.
Yeah. Well, look at
People,
it. It's actually a 400-page book. Actually,
I know.
I'm just breaking it down, that's 100 pages a day.
You said
But
right.
I
And you had
didn't,
to
I
redo
didn't,
parts, as you said.
and then I had to redo.
Yeah.
So, oh, actually, I did have to go back in the studio and do something else too. Um, but I never felt rushed. Once Maddie put me on the right track. Uh, um, I never looked up from the page. I just read it as as it came to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did but then you also have to promote the book, and then you're going to be asked questions like this over and over,
Well, yeah,
and
you're
then it's
asking all the
coming
right
back yet.
questions. So that was the other thing I didn't expect. I don't think, I know enough about the publishing world to know from my friends' books who are far more experienced and well known than I am as a writer, uh, that with the tightening of the belt, um, you know, they many of them, despite how good their book was, were not sent out on these book tours that I grew up watching my aunt and uncle and father go on, as if, that's what you did. You got on a plane and went to one city and then another and another. Joan wrote an essay about being on the road. And I always found it quite romantic. So I had no expectation of that. I thought it's going to come out. I'll do a couple of podcasts. I'll never leave my apartment. And um, and they gave me Penguin gave me an old fashioned book tour,
Hmm.
um, and I've been to many cities and all that. But what I didn't expect was, one, that I'd have a book tour. Two, what goes into a book tour when you're promoting a memoir about your own life, um, about some happy, silly times, and then the saddest moment in your life that changed your life forever, and that you'd be talking about it night after night, or day after day, whenever it was, often in front of auditoriums and movie theaters that have been rented out. And it never stopped being emotional. I'd have to take a breath again at unexpected times. But at the very beginning, I thought, Jesus, how am I going to get through this? And then I realized my purpose in this is to keep my family, who I find extraordinary, to keep their memory alive, and to talk about their work in victims' rights, and to talk about domestic violence, and talk about the judicial system and the misogyny that takes place in a courtroom, and the defense tactic of blaming the victim. All of this still goes on. So that gave me purpose. And that's what drove my father to keep putting himself through these murder trials. They just about gave him a heart attack every time he did. I thought the OJ trial would kill him. And he's sitting with the Brown family and Nicole's family, and he took it so hard. And my mother started a victims' rights group in California, Justice for Victims of Homicide. They changed laws to protect the victims. And she had MS. We thought the MS would kill her. She was handicapped. And she would roll onto a talk show, this shy, reserved woman who had a great sense of humor, much beloved, but shy, talking more than 4 or 5 people at a table. Never wanted to be the center of attention. And she'd get on there and talk to Sally Jesse Raphael, or wherever the hell it was.
Right.
And I couldn't believe it. I'm watching her going, that's you, Mom? God damn it.
Yeah.
And she got an award from George W. Bush Sr. She was sent to the White House and presented with an award from George Sr.
Maybe that's in one of those presidential libraries now.
And I listen. So I embraced it. I embraced the thing. I had purpose.
Well, I appreciate your sharing all that stuff. That's really means a lot. And I also, obviously part 2 is heavy duty, as is a lot of the book, but there's also so much. There's a lot of lightness to it as well. And I love you just brought up your mother, and I love how both of your parents really come to themselves, and they both emerge out of this, out of both, just aging sometimes, and as just really had these significant things to say and contribute. And one of the things that I was listening to you on NPR in my preparation. I have to plug in. I forgot to plug in. It's about to run out of battery. 1 second. Goddamn editing now.
Wait, give me 1 sec. I gotta grab something too. Give me 1 sec.
Okay, sure. Take your time.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, there's also obviously some lighter parts to the book, or components, and one is your parents and how they emerge. Your father obviously comes out of the closet, I don't want to say reinvent himself, although I guess that's part of it. It's more just finds his authentic self, and with that comes a new level, a new chapter of success for him that's no one could have anticipated, perhaps, and felt like a real purpose. And your mom, what stands out with her, there's these 2 moments in your book where you recall she told you how brave you were. One is when she's miscarrying a baby and she's driving herself to the hospital and you're riding shotgun and you're there for her. You're four
Yeah.
years old. You're four
Yeah.
years old, and she says, "Griffin, you're brave," and it's a beautiful moment. And then there's almost like a bookend to it. You join your mother for an earlier support group before she started one, which was for parents of murdered children. Very blunt name. If I got it wrong, pardon me, but
No, that's it.
you know,
You're trying to work
and
well.
you join her, and you're not a parent of Dominique. Obviously, you're the sibling, and you have all this stuff you have to process and deal with being in that meeting, and you're kind of not you express how you're not really thrilled with the way you came off or you handled it, but your mom tells you how brave you are, having opened up and been honest in that room, and then you just end, and maybe it's the end of part one, in fact, and just saying, um no, no, mom, you're brave.
You're
It's
the brave
it's
one.
an
Yeah.
yeah, you're the brave one. But it's not. I was reminded from that NPR interview about the first time she said it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really touching.
Yeah. We had a very close bond from a very, very early age. I'm the oldest, and um,
Hmm.
that moment you're talking about when she miscarried, well, it was beyond miscarrying, and she almost died, and um, and I was her co-pilot in that Volkswagen Bug, you know, tearing up the Pacific Coast Highway to get to St. John's Hospital, and it bonded us at a very early age. Um, and when she divorced my father, um, I was quite young then. I was 13, but she looked to me to be the man of the house, or at least that's the role I felt I was taking on. And um, when she probably overshared a bit with me, and at a young age, that's sort of what parents did, especially if there was a bottle of white wine involved. And she was very sad. I was with her through real sadness. Um, but all I can't tell you how much her daughter and brother and myself loved her. We just protected her. We would have died for her. And um, she was beyond reproach. And we almost had a she was angelic to us. And her strength, the way she handled her getting sicker and sicker and all these, she loved Mahler, and she loved to put the needle onto the LP, and her hands started to shake, so she couldn't do that. She loved her true cigarettes, and then the multiple sclerosis would get so bad, and she couldn't hold a book. This woman read a book a week, and then she was bedridden, and the dignity. Well, the dignity also used to drive us crazy, be like, Mom, just throw something across a room, just yell and scream. And she just sucked it up. I never saw such, back to that word, bravery in anyone, right before my eyes, and dignity.
Hmm. Well, you mentioned before you wanted to get it right, and I know it was probably as a writer, but also for all your all those family members that are no longer around to read it. Uh, but I appreciate your time today, Griffin. Thanks for being so available, and you always are, by the way. But this is pretty big. It's
Yeah,
not I love Dick
I
or
know.
something, and yeah, but
No,
which I'm
no, this
still
was a this is an overshare.
I don't, yeah, we're for some, perhaps not for me, but anyway. But so the only other thing I was going to ask you is, hopefully there'll be an opportunity since you do get up to the Hudson Valley, maybe you could sign my copy at some point.
I would be happy to. I would. Yeah, you're Tivoli, sure, of course.
Well, I'm in I'm in Tivoli right now, but I live right across the river from the Hudson, New York, right on the river there in Athens, New York, which is,
Oh yeah, okay.
you know where that is?
I do. I do
Okay.
indeed.
But I'm down in Red Hook.
Uh,
I work in Red Hook. And
So
yeah.
oh God, I won't say it on this thing, but
Yeah.
get my email or things, or when we're both up there, I'll meet you in Red Hook and
All right, or I'll come to
come sign your book or come
yeah.
to me or whatever.
All right. You can put it if you want to. I mean, I guess by now you can trust that I'm not going to bother you.
Oh, I trust you totally with it, whatever you want.
If you want to put it, just put your email if you in the chat spot there, and then you know how to do that. Let's see.
I've
There you
seen this before. There you are.
All right. Well,
Okay,
yeah.
let me just do this now. I got you.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll make a plan, and yeah, I'd love that. That would be so nice to have it. And if you get a chance, by the way, there's this new book on Elaine May.
No, I know all about it. She's not crazy about it, by the way.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I thought it was
dear friend
really
of mine. I
okay.
know, but people, I don't think
How do you
if
make
write an
somebody like
unauthorized
Elaine May
biography.
happy? What's that?
Yeah, one, she's tough probably to make
Yeah,
happy in any case,
right.
but I can tell you, anytime someone writes an unauthorized biography, their subject is never going to be happy.
On the other hand, that's really the only way to go, I think, because you can't have the freedom to
exactly.
So it's a no-win, I guess, is what you're saying.
It is a no-win. So I put mine.
Where is it? I think you have to hit return, hit enter.
I hit return. Sorry.
There you go.
So now, but you have to send me your number so it will ring through, because it won't, unfamiliar numbers won't ring.
Okay. Oh, I'll just text it to you.
Yeah, that sounds good too.
Okay, I'll do that.
All right.
All right. All right. Well, let's end it on so I can actually have. All right. Thank you. The name of it one last time. It's called The Friday Afternoon Club, a family memoir written by Griffin Dunne. And I can't recommend it enough. It's just don't leave it at the beach is my own. But I got it back. I did get it back.
Oh, you did? Good.
Yeah, because my friends were still there and they brought it and I got it back. But I wasn't going to wait. I couldn't wait another day to finish it. I was just like, that's how good it was. So.
I hope there's still sand between the pages.
Thank you very much.
You bet, pal. Thank you.
All right. All right. Bye. I'll see you soon.
Okay.